Still.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the community workshop number 1 for the Parks and Facilities Master Plan. We're going to give it a couple minutes to let people join in. So please, we appreciate your patience and hang tight. We'll be with you in a moment. Okay, again, welcome everybody. You are joining the community workshop number 1 for the Parks and Facilities Master Plan. We have a total of 8 attendees. I know some of them are staff members, so we're going to give it another minute or two. Hopefully we can get some more people in, but for those of you that are with us today, right now, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join in and listen in, and you'll be given an opportunity to provide some input here shortly. So we'll give it another minute or two.
Renee, if I can, for those attendees who are in the room right now, just joining us, and those people who will be joining us here, I see more people filtering in. If you have questions tonight, if you'd like to ask us the design planning team questions, staff questions, go ahead and type it in to the question. You can tap ask a question down on the bottom of your toolbar. Please hit that as we go through the presentation tonight. We'll be referring back to those questions and being able to answer stuff as we go along the way. So please type those in and we'll address them as we move through it. If we don't get to all the questions tonight, we will make sure to post them back on a website update. So that way we have ample time to respond to everybody. And if you don't ask a question tonight, or you're seeing this as part of a recorded broadcast, you can go to the project website at any time. We're going to share that information on screen, and you can use the feedback button there to ask us a question directly through the feedback button on the website. Renee, and I'll defer back to you here too.
Okay, thank you, Zach. So yeah, let's get started now officially. It is, I have 6:05 on my laptop clock, so we'll get started. So thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Renee Guerrero. I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Pomona. Tonight is community workshop number 1 for the Parks and Facilities Master Plan. And I'll turn it over to David for some quick translation. Go ahead.
Hola, bienvenidos. Nosotros somos el equipo de diseño de la ciudad de Pomona. Vamos a estar presentando la encuesta número 1 y todos queremos su participación.
Thank you, David. We will work. The city is very excited about this project. This project is being paid for with a grant. And I believe this is actually the city's first Parks and Facilities Master Plan in quite some time, if not the first, very first. If not, it's been a long time since we've had a master plan. David?
Este es uno de los primeros o más actualizados plan maestros que la ciudad de Pomona ha tenido.
Okay, so before I turn it over to our consultant, RJM, and before I introduce them, this is again the first community workshop of 4 that we will have. We have had a website related to the project up for a number of months, and we've had a survey up for a number of months. And so there's been plenty of opportunity for people to join in and provide comment. And we have seen that there have been close to 1,000 people who have seen our website. And we have over 100 different questions and comments that we've received thus far.
Han habido 1,000 participantes a las encuestas en esos momentos. Esta es la primera de 4. Estamos ansiosos por escuchar cuáles son sus opiniones.
So as I turn it over to our consultant to start the presentation, I will remind everybody that you can please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There's a button that says Q&A. Please type in your questions, type in your comments. We will have an opportunity to address some of those questions and comments. And if we cannot address those questions or comments tonight, they will be addressed on the project website.
En la parte inferior de esta pantalla puede encontrar las letras Q&A, que es question and answers, preguntas y respuestas. Las puede escribir y la vamos a estar respondiendo. Si no llegamos a responder cada una de las preguntas, estas estarán publicadas en la página website en la parte de actualizaciones.
Okay, so to start with our brief presentation, I will introduce Zachary Mutin and David Molina from RJM. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Renee. My name is Zachary Meeting. We will be the ones preparing the Parks and Recreation Master Plan for the city. And David is my right-hand man here. He will be handling all the Spanish translations. In fact, he handles a lot of our Spanish presentations, all the Spanish translations. So as we get questions in, we've received them in multiple languages, and David here actually handles all of our Spanish translations. So I'm happy to have him by my side tonight. We're going to make sure we do a dual presentation here tonight. So we get to hear everything from everybody at the same point in time, and we can provide live feedback as much as possible to everyone.
Muy buenas tardes, nosotros somos el equipo de diseño de RJM. Él es Zach y yo soy David. Nosotros vamos a estar presentando la forma de la encuesta número 1. Estaremos presentándolo en 2 idiomas simultáneamente. Estamos ansiosos por presentar.
So with that, I'd like to start just with a brief presentation on our background. This is community workshop number 1 here tonight at February 23rd. And this process will actually run from October 2021 all the way through April 2022. And I'm going to give you a brief presentation on some of the information. We actually have a longer presentation online on the project website. You can go view it anytime.
Esta es una de las primeras presentaciones, es la versión corta de la que puede encontrar en la página website con las publicaciones de Facebook de la ciudad de Pomona, que va a estar conducida, ha sido conducida desde octubre 21 hasta abril del 2022 y las encuestas están abiertas desde hoy.
This process is actually broken up into 5 parts. So we're going to go through, this is part 1 of a very long process. We've gone through an inventory of all of the parks and facilities that are out there in Pomona now. We are currently in the extensive community engagement process where we want to hear from you, the community. So tonight is just one of those opportunities. We get to interface, hear some of your comments, and share some of the feedback we've collected so far. After that, we'll go through a needs analysis, the recommendations, then finally the funding and implementation towards the end of the project.
El proceso de esta parte tiene 5 partes. El primero es el inventario de condiciones existentes. En estos momentos nos encontramos en la fase número 2, que es la amplia participación de la comunidad, en donde escuchamos su voz, para así llegar al punto número 3, análisis de necesidades. Luego, al final, damos nuestras recomendaciones y finalmente llega la parte administrativa sobre fondos e implementaciones.
Now, the timeline, very briefly, is around 12 months to complete this study. And as I had mentioned earlier, it's through multiple steps. You can see where we are today, right here in the middle of February, with workshop number 1. And we'll continue going through some of these workshop series. So we're not going to disappear. There will be a lot of opportunities for people to take part here in the future.
Esta es una breve explanation. Es una breve explicación sobre qué es lo que va a estar sucediendo en los siguientes 6 meses. En estos momentos nos encontramos en febrero, en donde puede ver la estrella.
Now, very briefly too, as we went through the inventory of the parks facilities, and this information that we collected here helps us understand when the community shares information with us, what park, what they're talking about, what different area, what amenities. We like to have a common vernacular, a language that we can understand in the parks of what you're talking about. This is just some of the information we've collected here on the left, such as 28 parks, 5 community centers, 8 recreation centers at parks, 2 public swimming pools, and 2 skate parks.
En lo que hemos recolectado información, este es el inventario de los parques y facilidades comunitarios, en donde son 28 parques, 5 centros comunitarios, 8 centros recreativos, 2 albercas y 2 parques de patinaje.
We also look at where comments come from and where parks are. So as we go through this process, we make sure that we can really tie in whether people are talking about parks adjacent to their neighborhood, parks across town, where are the parks and recreation facilities, and where does the community live in relationship to those parks?
A medida que vamos con este proceso, aquí se encuentra el mapa de la ciudad de Pomona con sus respectivos parques, en donde escuchamos sus opiniones y de ahí damos sugerencias sobre qué son las cosas que necesita cada uno de los parques.
We also collect demographic information to find out whom the community is. And we see just briefly here, there's more than 150,000 population within the city, and the largest group of residents from the ages of 35 to 64 fall within that 36th percentile range.
Los demográficos de la ciudad del 2021 son 145,000, de los que el 36% es la población de 35 a 64 años de edad.
Now, as we go through the presentation tonight, and that was just a quick feedback on some of the information we're collecting. At any point in time, if you want to give us a question, send us information in. If you don't get your information in tonight and you're seeing this as a recording, you can hit that feedback button, and there's a QR code there that will take you to the website. And at any point in time during the process, you can share any feedback, ask us any question, it comes directly to the design team. It will make sure to get back to you either in a video presentation such as this or directly on our website update.
El botón de comentarios es una herramienta que estamos utilizando en estos momentos para escuchar sus opiniones, no importa el momento en el que usted esté viendo este video. Si lo encuentra viendo en estos momentos, puede acceder inmediatamente a la casilla de comentarios y darnos sus ideas y opiniones sobre los parques al equipo de diseño.
Now, Renee, we've got a couple of things coming in as well too. But I want to kind of address the comments you made earlier too. We already have received over 100 comments on that feedback button. And I want to take a moment to touch on a few of those and kind of share what we've heard, maybe even ask you some questions based on what we've seen come in. And I know we have some questions coming online here too that we'll get to. Some of the first stuff is what are we receiving in this feedback button? Kind of over 100 comments. Is there some commonality? And we do see some commonality. We see a lot of comments coming in and restroom improvements, requests for items such as doors on stalls, repairs, upgrades, accessibility. We've heard elements such as homeless. Also, lighting at parks is a big one. We've heard quite a bit of comments about that, safety, repairs, sports field lights. We've also heard comments in terms of maintenance, replacing and repairing tables and benches. This information is critical to us. It helps us identify not just what park and facility, but what amenity, what does the community want? So as we get these feedback comments in, they really help us dive into where the community is looking for certain improvements and what can really come in and start to build onto the public. Renee, do you want to address or talk on any of those points?
I do. And before I do, I just want to, again, remind everybody, please use the Q&A function. We do have a question in there. We'll get to that, Lizette. Thank you for submitting your question. But I want to really encourage everybody, if you have a question or a comment, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And we'll get an opportunity to go through those questions and comments here in a little bit. But again, I encourage everybody to submit your question via the Q&A button, or you can even do it in the chat function as well. There's two ways that you can do that. So yeah, we've already started reviewing some of these comments and questions that have been submitted since the beginning of this project. One of them that I do want to touch on real quick is, because I think it's an important one, is someone asked, what is the city doing about the homeless in our parks? So, I just want to answer that real quick. This particular plan, I'm sorry, Dave, let me give you an opportunity to say this down.
Thank you so much. I was going to interrupt you at one point. Se está enfatizando en estos momentos que, por favor, existen dos casillas en la parte inferior, Q&A para preguntas y respuestas, o también las podemos recolectar en la forma del chat. Entonces, vamos en estos momentos, el diálogo es que vamos a responder algunas de las preguntas que hemos estado escuchando de parte de todos los residentes y dar unas cuantas respuestas de preguntas que han sido recogidas anteriormente.
Thank you, David. So real quick, going back to one of the things I wanted to touch on, again, this is going back to some of the many questions that we're seeing so far. Someone asked about the homeless in our parks. I do want to say that the city does have a program. We call it the HEART program. And I will shortly in the chat function, I will put in an email address and a phone number that can be called or sent an email to when you see homeless in the park and you would like something to be done about it. We do have a specific email address and a phone number to call, and I will put that in shortly.
Se quiere hablar, una de las preguntas más importantes es hablar sobre los indigentes, y la ciudad tiene una línea encargada para hacer escuchar su opinión. Si usted tiene alguna sugerencia o ve a alguien que está en las calles, esos son los números o email que puede acceder en cualquier momento.
Renee, I just noticed something, looking at some of the questions as they're coming in. There was a question about playground apparatus specifically. And as we get that question in, thank you very much for submitting that one. The playground renovations actually came up quite high on the number of lists too. We received 14 different playground comments, and that really kind of gives us information to say, okay, let's go look at specific playground elements. And in fact, it looks like the question about the Philadelphia Park has a broken slide. Can we talk about some of the playground improvements? Are there current improvements in the city that are going on? And how can we address some of these as we go forward?
Una de las preguntas que se está haciendo en estos momentos es sobre las renovaciones de los parques. para niños especialmente, y en el parque de Filadelfia existe un columpio con muchos que están destruidos en estos momentos. ¿Qué estamos haciendo al respecto? Se está preguntando René.
Thank you, David. So Lizette, thank you for the question. I have made note of it. I have made note of this specific slide at Philadelphia Park. I will say that we do try to address the various issues with our playground equipment at our parks. We know some of our parks have some older playground equipment, but we do try to address it as we can and as funds allow. I will also say, David, before I move on to my next, go ahead.
Estamos tratando de solucionar los parques para los niños en estos momentos.
Okay. I will remind everybody that what this plan is going to do is really create a game plan for the city, right? This master plan will identify needs throughout the city when it comes to our parks and our programming at our parks and our community centers. This really provides a game plan. We know that there are many needs with our parks and our programs, and we don't necessarily have the funding to address every single one of those needs. But I will say, before I move on to my next point, I'll let David translate that.
Lo que en estos momentos el plan o el juego nos está ayudando es en forma para ejecutar no solamente problemas pequeños, sino más amplios.
Okay, thanks, Dave. I want to say that the City Council agrees with all of you that our parks are in need of help. And there is some funding coming in to the city. And the council has allocated some of that funding to some of our parks. And I'm excited to say that you're going to start seeing some work at some of our parks here in this next year while we finish the creation of this master plan. I will also take this opportunity to say that one of those first parks that you're going to see some major renovations at is Hamilton Park. Hamilton Park will see a $2 million renovation. And as part of that renovation, we will be installing the city's first all abilities playground. And so we're very excited about that. And I would expect to see construction starting sometime this summer. Go ahead, David.
All right. Todo el consulado sabe que tenemos que utilizar más fondos hacia los parques y de hecho ya empezamos con esta ejecución. Uno de los parques que fueron llamados más es el Parque Hamilton y ya se han invertido 2 millones para su ejecución, en donde parques para ADA accesibles para todos los públicos están en ejecución.
You know, Renee, I see more questions coming in too. A lot of comments on playgrounds, playground specific components. We love hearing those. Any element that you want to share on either the chat tonight, the Q&A tonight, or the feedback button, that helps us direct our research and the recommendations. In fact, I want to share one more here too tonight. It can be anything. One user had responded in the feedback button, had said, we take our children to the park where we grew up in hopes of them creating the same great memories we did. Now, that really sums it up, in my opinion. Parks are the front line for any community. That is where we create our childhood memories, our birthday events, first time riding a bicycle. Thank God there was grass where I learned how to ride my bicycle because I fell quite a bit. But those things really help. When you share this information with our design team, it helps us really focus the design research.
Una de las preguntas que se han venido es más sobre las estructuras de parques para niños, como por ejemplo una de las personas que mandó sus comentarios habla sobre la melancolía, sobre los recuerdos que ha sido de tener un parque desde pequeños en la ciudad de Pomona y todos entendemos, todos sabemos cuáles son esos sentimientos de montar una bicicleta y tal vez caerse en el pasto y ahí vamos.
Excellent. And that's really referring specifically to the question there about the Phillips Ranch Park too, having the mats torn. We'll make sure that we look at those specifically. They're cataloged in our report, and we start to really dive in on what those recommendations are. Renee, did you have anything to add to that one?
For that question, no. I think thank you for Mrs. Still. We are well aware of the foam, the rubberized surfacing at Phillips Ranch Park. I will say that so is the Parks and Rec Commission. They are very well aware of that, and they've let staff know. Exciting to hear though that at last week's Parks and Recs Commission, they did recommend the replacement of rubberized surfacing, not specifically at this park just yet, but there are some other parks in the city that are quite bad. And so they've recommended 3 parks to replace those surfacing. So we're going to get to those first. But know that Phillips Ranch Park is on our list, and we feel that is money coming our way. Go ahead, Dave.
Can I ask you a question? Phillips Ranch does have a problem with rubberized surfacing.
The park it does. The park does.
El parque, otro ejemplo es el parque de Phillips Ranch. Hay muchos problemas con las superficies de caucho y la comunidad siente que necesitan estar arregladas. Y René acaba de contestar que sí, estamos dando los fondos para la solución de esas superficies.
And thank you, Dave. And Zach, before to kind of close out the comment that we had seen about, we like to take our children to the park where we grew up in hopes of them creating the same great memories that we did. I kind of keep using the word excited, but this is an exciting time, not only for the fact that this master plan is being created right now. That's exciting in and of itself, but I would highly recommend that everybody follow the Community Services Division on their Instagram page. They have an Instagram page. They are getting some new funding now and have already received some new funding. And so they have plans for some great programs coming up. And the best way to stay on top of that and to know what's happening with them and their programming is to follow them on their Instagram page. So I wanted to put that out there real quick. David?
No podemos dejar de remarcar cuán emocionados estamos por el Plan Maestro y para tener un mejor entendimiento de qué es lo que está sucediendo en estos momentos. Los invitamos a que sigan las páginas de Instagram del Departamento de Programas y Servicios para tener más ideas.
Renee, there was another question that I got in, and we have several questions coming in, but I want to ask about one specifically we received as part of our feedback comments. Somebody had asked about the Little Free Library at JFK. I love Little Free Libraries. I've seen them in several other areas, neighborhoods, and parks. I use them with my kids. This one mentioned that the door was broken on it, and the amenities around it is really trying to preserve that little free library there. Can you just touch on how are we going to address these as we move forward?
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Dave. You want to?
Una de las otras preguntas ha sido sobre el libro JF Kennedy, sobre una biblioteca gratuita para todos, en donde se puede donar libros, pero debido a problema con una puerta, todas las cosas que están adentro y la estructura en sí está deteriorada. ¿Cómo vamos a solucionar eso? Es la pregunta. ¿Vale?
Thank you, Dave. So yeah, the city does have a Little Free Library program. Typically the Little Free Library, if and when approved by the Parks and Recreation Commission, will typically have a steward assigned to that Little Free Library. Typically that's a resident in the city who either lives near that park and lives near that Little Free Library. We wouldn't necessarily approve the installation of a Little Free Library without a steward who would be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the Little Free Library. So we have noted that JFK has some issues with it, and so we'll make sure to get in contact with that steward. One more thing, David, you can also contact, and I'll put this gentleman's number in the chat as well. I still have some other information to put in there, but Roberto Curial oversees that program for the city, and I'll put his number in there. And then you can always contact your Parks and Recreation Commissioner in your district, and they will bring that to our attention as well. David?
All right. Sí, la ciudad tiene una librería gratuita que es dirigida más que todo por los residentes que están cerca a esta, y obviamente se dará una instalación con una persona encargada a la que usted puede contactarse, y René en esos momentos va a dar el número de Roberto, y ahí puede dirigirse directamente.
Thank you, David.
There's another question that came up here is, let me read it here. Is there a breakdown of the ethnic composition in our survey responses? What we mentioned on the website is the story map, is that there's 70% responded in English and 30% responded in Spanish. Thank you for that question. In fact, what we present back to the community is really a summary of all the information we collect. We have very much in-depth background analysis where we compare multiple different elements across, whether it be the demographic background or the geographic background. So that way we take into account several different views or lenses, if you will, on the analysis. All of that is published in the appendices of our report when we get to the end of the project. But in order to present information back to the community as rapidly as possible during this process with so much information, sometimes we take the high level topics and present that information back. Yes, we do have it, and we will publish further breakdown information now that we know it's more important as we move forward.
Una de las preguntas que se hicieron en la casilla de aquí abajo es cómo se está mencionando la distribución de 70% en inglés y 30% en español, y su respuesta ha sido que nosotros tomamos todos la información de demográficos y geográficos para encontrar cuáles son las preguntas más grandes, y de ahí empezamos a reconstruir las respuestas y los análisis.
Renee, there was another question too, as we go through this, and I'm going to touch on the end of our presentation here tonight, our Q&A session, some of the questions that are actually on the survey that's live now. Before we move into that part of the presentation, I want to share too, we received a comment on our feedback button is, I don't use the parks much. I like that information as well too. Why? I would ask back, why don't you use the parks much, or what can be in the parks? What are you looking for in the parks in order to want to use them more? So this information is critical too, because I want to know, is there something preventing you from using the parks? And we start to look at that information as we develop recommendations in the report.
Una de las preguntas que encontramos de la encuesta fue que no se utilizan los parques, o esta persona específicamente no necesita usarlos. Pero a lo que tratamos de llegar es por qué no estamos utilizando eso, y qué nos está impidiendo de utilizar las amenidades públicas.
There's a couple more questions coming in too, and I want to make sure I spend as much time on the questions, Renee, as possible. There's a question there about the proposed time frame for Pomona's master plan development and execution. So the development of the master plan was posted earlier in our video, but I'll just quickly recap. It's about a 12-month process. We're halfway through the master planning process, which started with an inventory of all the conditions. Right now, we're in the community outreach, where it's critical we hear from you, the community, and then we'll take the next 6 months to finalize our outreach, synthesize all the data, and then provide feedback.
Claudia preguntaba cuál es el cronograma de el Plan Maestro de Pomona y como hemos mencionado anteriormente en la presentación, el proceso tarda 12 meses en los que nos encontramos en la mitad. Hoy febrero a 6 meses se suponemos que ya vamos a tener un plan diseñado para todos.
Kind of the second part of your question there was how long will it take for the execution of this document? That's a great question. Actually, this document can live from 5, 10 to 15 years down the road. It's a roadmap for the future. Based on everything we hear from the community, we'll be able to identify a varying range of information, such as recommendations for potentially playground improvements, potentially lighting improvements, or potential new facilities. We won't be able to develop those recommendations without your input, but we'll also develop funding mechanisms as well as timelines and prioritization. So as we move through the process, I really encourage you to come back to each of the workshops and answer the various surveys we're going to offer, because one of them will be a prioritization. How soon do you want something? And that will play into some of those timelines.
La segunda parte de esta pregunta es cuánto tiempo se va a demorar en tomar ejecución tal plan maestro. El plan puede tener 3, 4, 5 años de aquí en adelante y este documento puede vivir por cierto tiempo, en los que podemos recomendar cuáles son las necesidades sobre luz, mantenimiento, parques para niños, parques para adultos, en los que
in the 10, 15 years in the future.
No.
So
Like that. Sorry.
Sometimes I talk a little long.
I'm sorry, the survey portion. Una vez que ustedes colecten las encuestas llegarán directamente al plano de tiempo en los que si se necesita un parque para niños, ¿en cuánto tiempo se necesita este parque? Así sucesivamente. Una de las preguntas futuras va a ser sobre cuál es el tiempo en el que esas recomendaciones necesitan tomar tiempo dependiendo de las residencias de Pomona.
And I love these meetings because, Renee, they give us this opportunity to have this direct feedback with the community as questions come up. So sometimes our answers might be a little different. My answers might be a little longer. But David has done an amazing job translating for us.
And Zach, thank you, Zach, and thank you, David. I want to quickly address a question in the chat before I get to Cassandra's question. Someone asked, I think it's RG asked, the Westmont Community Center interest is dilapidating. You are correct, RG, it is. And great news is that we are well aware of it. The city council member Lustro, representing your district, District 5, that's been on his radar for quite some time. And I'm happy to say that we do have plans for, when I say plans, we actually have construction documents that shows major improvement for that entrance. We do have the funding for it as well. And I would say that you would probably see some construction work starting here this summer at the latest. So that entrance will be revamped and redone. Go ahead, Dave.
Tenemos planos ya en ejecución para la entrada de cierto parque que RJ está preguntando en estos momentos y planos han estado en acción.
Thank you, Dave. To Cassandra's question, Cassandra asks, is there a reason this meeting was not promoted in every park or recreation center? She happened to come across the flyer at Phillips Ranch, but not in my Westmont Community Center. I believe meetings like this and surveys should be promoted more in our communities to have more community involvement. We couldn't agree more, Cassandra. I will say, I'll go ahead, Dave, if you want to read that in Spanish.
Yeah. Cassandra está preguntando en estos momentos cuál ha sido la razón por la que no en todos los parques y centros recreativos han venido a publicar flyers, advertencias sobre esta encuesta y esta clase de actividades debería de tener más participación de la comunidad. Y ahora responder.
Thank you, Dave. So Cassandra, along with announcing these meetings on the city's website and on the city's Instagram page, I did have last Thursday, I had some staff go out and place the flyers both in English and in Spanish on some A-frame barricades. And I asked that one be placed at every park. And I'm hoping one was placed at Westmont, at least at the maybe at the park itself. We don't have as many resources as I would like to get this information out, but we can always try to improve on getting the information out. And if there's a better way than placing these signs and these flyers outside next to the playgrounds, which I thought would be a good idea, we're going to continue looking to improve ways in which we get the word out for these meetings. There will be 3 other community workshops, so we'll make sure to get the word out. David?
Para responder esta pregunta, si se han distribuido panfletos y advertencias dentro de la ciudad, tal vez en el único que no llegó fue en el Westmont Centro Comunitario, pero desde el jueves han sido repartidas y han habido pequeñas estaciones para su distribución, pero tal vez vamos a estar estudiando cuál es el mejor lugar para que más personas tengan acceso a esta información, aparte de las redes sociales.
Thank you, Dave. Zach, before I want to turn it over to you, because I see a couple questions here about, will the plan include grass installation, or will the plan include the lack of green space? And before I let you answer that, Zach, I will say, these are exactly the things and questions that we want to hear so that they can be included in the master plan. Isn't that right, Zach?
Absolutely. Do you want to touch on that here before I move into the presentation, David?
Una de las preguntas que se hacen en estos momentos es si los parques moviéndose hacia adelante, van a tener zacate, pasto, césped, y esas son una de las cosas que en estos momentos queremos recolectar sobre la ciudad. Entonces vamos a seguir a la siguiente presentación.
So Renee, I'd like to share, in order to answer some of those questions, I'm going to share my screen and we'll look at the presentation here for the second part. Really, as we move in, survey 1, which is live right now, you can use that QR code. It's also available on social media channels. You can click on it, take the survey, and give us your information. Those are exactly the questions that I want to get answered. I want to have asked is really so on our survey 1, we're asking what are the most important community characteristics that makes Pomona a great place to live, work, and play? What is it that everybody loves about Pomona? What do you love about Pomona? This helps us dive into, are people looking for turf installations, turf improvements, soccer improvements? Are you looking for some more family activities at each park moving forward? Are you looking for splash pads? That was another question that came up. We're going to start asking specific questions to that. Second question that we asked on survey 1 is, what are issues that may be impacting those great community characteristics negatively and should be considered as part of the Parks and Facilities Master Plan? The third question is, what can Public Works or Community Services do in their role to help support those great community characteristics that make Pomona a great place to live, work, and play? So as we move through, this survey focuses on community characteristics, potential negative issues to those characteristics, as well as what Public Works can do in supporting those community characteristics.
a medida que vamos progresando en la encuesta, estas son preguntas que en verdad queremos escuchar. Y este fue uno de los ejemplos más claros en los que en la primera pregunta, las características de la comunidad, qué es lo que hace la ciudad de Pomona un lugar vivible y amable de trabajar, o cualquiera que sea las respuestas que queremos escuchar sobre más actividades familiares, o si son campos de fútbol para que los niños jueguen o que los adultos se recreen, o si necesitamos chorros de aguas para que los infantes jueguen en los parques. Esas son una de las preguntas que entran en la pregunta número 1. La pregunta número 2, ¿cuáles son los problemas que están afectando que estas actividades no sucedan en la comunidad? Es donde queremos escuchar las problemáticas. Y número 3 es cómo el trabajos públicos o Public Works y el departamento de programas comunitarios o the Department of Community Services está ayudando para poder solucionar la pregunta número 2, en donde las cosas negativas tienen una solución. Queremos escuchar de parte de todos ustedes.
So, and as we move through it, that's simply the questions we're asking on workshop 1. Workshop 2, we're actually going to dive into a little bit more deeper information, asking programs and services and various other questions. So as we get your questions in on this Q&A, as we get questions in on the feedback, we're going to be looking for those things specifically. And yes, we will be looking at different programs for family and family activities moving forward. We'd like to know what specific ones you would want. Also is information such as that you're giving us here through, are people looking for a splash pad? That's something we would love to hear on the survey. We're hearing it tonight or hearing it on the feedback button. Anything can be submitted through these surveys or through the feedback. We'd love to hear all those questions. And then the last question here I see too is, will there be consideration into some elements within crossings to some of the parks and park access? Absolutely. We've heard some of that already on some of our feedback surveys. That's a great question in terms of how can we access to the parks? Are roads a barrier? Sometimes the larger roads they become a barrier trying to get across the crosswalk. So that information is very much important and part of this outreach process. I'd like to share here real quickly the survey link. It's available from the 23rd through the 9th, as well as on our other side here, the project website can be explored through that link. And David, can you?
Absolutely. De la manera en que vamos avanzando sobre toda la encuesta número 1, es en donde nos damos cuenta que la comunidad está diciendo que queremos parques para niños, o que necesitamos más campos de fútbol o recreación. De ahí es donde viene la encuesta número 2, en donde vamos aportando información más específica sobre las necesidades de la ciudad, en donde de febrero 23 a marzo 9, aquí pueden encontrar el enlace para tomar la encuesta, y prontamente en la página principal estará publicada la encuesta número 2. En donde comentarios como uno de los problemas es acceso hacia los parques desde el punto de vista de estacionamiento y senderos accesibles. Por eso los invitamos a que tomen la encuesta número 1, así podemos continuar más específicamente esta conversación.
So I would like everybody to share information as we move through this. Share it with your friends, your family, your neighbors. Really, we will do our best to reach out to the community. Sometimes word of mouth also help spread information. So please tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell everybody to join us on this dialogue and participate in the workshops as we move forward.
Les invitamos a compartir esta información. No existe mejor modo de compartir información sino boca a boca. Coméntale a tus amigos, compañeros, sobrinos, hijos, vecinos que por favor tomen esta encuesta.
So I don't see any more questions coming in tonight, but it's not over. At any point in time, you can use the feedback button. Renee?
Yeah, I think, thanks, Zach. And I do kind of want to address, I know we're approaching 7 o'clock here. There are some questions in the chat, and I think we've kind of addressed some of those. You know, many of these things, you know, has there been any thought given to creating a single recreation and parks department? So these are great things, and we're going to note this, of course, because this meeting is being recorded. So these are questions that we can help address, or at least put in the master plan as feedback from the community. I do want to say a couple things real quick. I'm sorry, Dave, go ahead and say that.
Yes. A medida que las preguntas van avanzando, tal vez no podemos llegar hacia todas las respuestas, así que las estaremos respondiendo en la casilla de comentarios y ahí las estaremos respondiendo.
I do want to talk about funding real quick. You know, for instance, this master plan is being paid for by funding that we're getting from the county Measure A program. I mentioned earlier in the meeting, the Hamilton Park project. That project is fully funded with grants that we as a staff applied for. Go ahead, if you want to say that real quick, Dave, and I'll say my last.
Todos queremos hablar en estos momentos sobre fondos en el que el programa del County A es el que ha estado encargado de darnos ese dinero, en el que Hamilton, el programa Hamilton, es una de nuestras mayores prioridades.
And so when this master plan is completed, we will have a roadmap of needs, right? We will have all kinds of things identified that need to be improved or renovated. What we will still need, though, is funding. And as we apply for more grant funding, as we get more money from the county Measure A program, we can actually now we will be able to look at our master plan and say, okay, what are the prioritized list of needs? And now we can start going down that list as identified by you. And that's really what this master plan is going to do for us. It's going to give us this roadmap. And as we get funding from the various sources that we get it from, we can look to this master plan to get those things done.
Estamos emocionados por el Plan Maestro a medida de que esta es una herramienta que nos va a guiar a la ciudad para poder saber cuánto dinero se necesita de pedir, cuántos fondos administrativos y proyectos hay que aplicar para empezar a terminar punto por punto, de primero al menos necesario, las necesidades comunitarias.
Thank you, Dave. Again, trying to finish out what's in the chat. Stephanie, I see your email address in there. We will be in contact for sure. Look forward to speaking with you. RG, will the plan include brighter lighting? Certainly, that's a need. We know that's a need, and we're happy to hear that you also think it's a need. So we encourage you to not only put your question in here, but go take the survey. Add that comment to the survey, add that need to the survey, go to the project website and put that need in there so that it can be included in the master plan. And we would greatly appreciate that. I know it might take a little bit of time, but we're trying to make it as easy as possible for everybody to get their comments heard. Claudia, thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate the comment, Claudia. I appreciate that. It's a team effort, Claudia, believe me. This is a team effort, not only with city staff, Shandy and Sylvia and Mike, who are on this call here with me, but also our consultant RJM. This is a team effort, and we're doing this for the community. So I appreciate the comment, Claudia. Okay. Oh, I think there might be a couple more questions here, Zach. Our kids need programs. I'm sorry, Zach. I'm sorry, Dave. Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
Lo que René está diciendo en estos momentos es enfatizando cuán necesario es que, por favor, todos participen en el cuestionario. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Martin, again, yes, this master plan regarding your question, our kids need programs. And how will the master plan address that? So again, I want to say this master plan is not just hard improvements, right? It's not just new playgrounds or new green space or new grass or new rubberized surfacing. It's not just about the improvements. The master plan will also address programming needs for our kids, and not just the kids, but it's our seniors, right? Our city seniors, as well as the rest of us as adults, right? We all have needs. We want to exercise, or we want to, take a day trip somewhere. But yes, the master plan will address programming needs. And again, Martin, I encourage you to go to the website and put your desires in there. Dave.
Una de las preguntas que ha sido hecha por Martín es si las necesidades solamente se aplican a estructuras y formas físicas del parque. Y René está respondiendo que no solamente es en la forma estructural, sino también en la forma de programas para que los niños o adultos o señores adultos también tengan participación en los parques, que exista esta forma de comunicación y participación entre la sociedad.
Thank you, Dave. And Zach, before I close it over to you or throw it back over to you, we have one more question here. Ganesha Park has the band shell. Thank you. And yes, an outdoor performance space. Are there other performance spaces in the parks? Are there plans for some? Great question. I know Tony Serta Park does have a stage that's there, and we've already heard from people that want that stage improved. And then, of course, other performances, things, obviously COVID has put a damper on things, and we haven't been able to have as many performances out there. But as I mentioned earlier, I know Mike and the Community Services Division has some great plans coming. And so look out for that. Dave.
Han preguntado que en Ganesha Park existe un espacio de performance, performance. I think everybody knows what's performance. Sorry. Un espacio abierto para presentar arte o danza, en donde abran más planes para crear más espacios abiertos o teatros de cierta manera. Y lo que René está contestando es que sí, definitivamente existen más planes para eso, pero otra vez se enfatiza que hagan esas opiniones abiertas, así podemos seguir la conversación.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, Zach, anything else you'd like to add or finish off the presentation? Or, there we go.
Yeah, I'm just would like to thank everybody for your comments tonight, your patience, and joining us a little longer than normal. But as long as the community is involved and are asking questions, we're happy to be here. Like you said, Renee, it's a team effort, and we're really all here for the city of Pomona and the residents. I'd like to leave the website up here and just let people know, let your friends know in terms of advertising. Follow the city's social media channels, the Instagram, the Facebook, check up on the project website. This is where you'll get more information. This is where we'll give you feedback on what we've heard, and we'll have more workshops in the future.
Les queremos agradecer antemano sobre su participación esta noche. En esta presentación pueden encontrar todos los links relacionados con la encuesta y el la página web en donde pueden encontrar todas las actualizaciones del proyecto. Les agradecemos mucho si en verdad puede compartir esta información con todos sus conocidos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys. And Dave, we won't need to translate this because I'm basically going to repeat everything that Zach just said. So yeah, on behalf of the city, I just want to thank everybody for taking time out of their evenings to join us. I encourage you to tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell family members that might live in the city to go to the website, take the survey, follow the city on our Instagram page, follow the Community Services Division on their Instagram page. I put that in the chat. We'll continue to try to improve how do we get the word out for the upcoming workshop, which will be sometime in March. So be on the lookout for that. But again, thank you all for your time and your participation. This master plan will only be as good as your participation, right? And so again, we encourage you to continue to participate and get involved. So thank you all very much. Have a great rest of the evening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.